Character Crafts. My name is Amy and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, November 13th, 2020. This is a channel all about my crafty life and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. I really appreciate you joining me today and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. You can find me online on Instagram at Noble Character Crafts. And you can also get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am currently hosting a make-along over on Instagram, which is called the Make 9 2020 now. It is a year-long make-along where we are endeavoring to make 9 projects that we have chosen for the year 2020. If you would still like to join in, it's really not too late, even though we only have about a month and a half left. But it's you're not required to finish anything. So if you still do want to join in, please do. You just need to make a grid showing 9 projects that you are working on or that you would like to work on by the end of the year, and post a grid to Instagram with those projects. And include the hashtag Make92020Mal, and then anytime that you work on one of those projects or finish one of those projects and post a picture of that on Instagram, you can include that hashtag, and that will include you in the drawing to win a prize, which I randomly choose. I have been choosing and giving away prizes throughout the year, so please continue to join in if you would like to. All works in progress are allowed and encouraged, and any craft is also encouraged to join in on this make-along. So I would love to see any of the projects that you all are working on for this make-along, and thanks so much to everybody that has continued to participate in that make-along. It's so much fun to see all of the progress that you all are making on your goals for this year. Today I am wearing the Sourcebook Chunky Cardigan that is designed by Norah Gaughan. I finished this at the beginning of 2019. Last time on my last episode I gave away 1 extra skein that I had left over from this sweater. It's a Knit Picks yarn that is a chunky weight, and it's in the Wilbur colorway. What is it called? Simply Wool, I think. So anyway, I love this cardigan. It's quite long. And it's really kind of my house coat. I wear it a lot whenever I feel chilly around the house. I don't wear it out of the house very often. I'm not sure why. Sometimes I do wear it kind of like as a coat when it's not too cold outside. But anyway, I love it. It's one of my most worn sweaters for sure. I have a few finished objects that I'd like to share with you all today, and that is why I am recording a little bit earlier than I normally would. It's just been a week since I recorded my last episode, but I have a few objects that I need to get off in the mail hopefully this afternoon before the post office closes, so that I can get them over to Woolly Wishes, which is an organization that is collecting handmade items to donate to Syrian refugees that are living in Turkey. And Nitty Natty is currently hosting a make-along, but it only goes until this Sunday, November 15th, for this particular make-along. And that is for you to donate items to Woolly Wishes. But Woolly Wishes is always accepting donations. So if you do want to join in, participating with that organization in donating handmade items, I believe that it is a year-long. They're always accepting donations. They just have particular deadlines for each, I guess, shipment of donated items. And this upcoming Sunday, the November 15th, is one of their deadlines, and it is the particular deadline for the make-along that Natalie of Nitty Natty is hosting. I will link to in the description box to the video where Natalie gives you details about this particular make-along, and then she will link in that video to Woolly Wishes' website so that you can get more information about that organization in case you are interested in donating items in the future. Last time I recorded was working on another hat. This is the 6th hat that I was able to complete for this particular make-along. This is the Urucum Hat, which is a free pattern by SambaKnit, and I have really enjoyed making this pattern. So this is the 4th hat that I have completed using this pattern. For this one, it is knit from the brim up. It is using worsted weight yarn, I've used all scraps, as you can probably tell, and these are leftover scraps from the Neat Ripple blanket that I recently finished and showed off on my last episode. I made the adult small size, so this pattern comes in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, all intended to be for adults. I made the small size, and I just followed the pattern exactly. I just used the Russian join method to connect my little tiny scraps of yarn, and it was so much fun to be able to use up all of those scraps, and I really love how the colors in this one turned out. The fit on this hat is just so great. I really, really love how it fits. I think it's such a nice, cozy hat. It fits me wonderfully. I don't have an overly large head, but it still has quite a bit of stretch in it. And I did try it on my son, my oldest sons, who are almost 11 and 12 years old, and it fit them really well too. So it's a nice sized hat. I think it'll be pretty versatile for several people. So that's I'm really happy with how that turned out. I used a US 6 4mm needle for the 1x1 twisted ribbing. And then I went up to US 8 5mm for the remainder of the hat. And these work up so quickly with worsted weight, and you know, hat projects are pretty easy anyway. I had a tiny bit of scraps left over still. Not enough to make an adult size hat, but I did have enough to make a child size hat. So I followed the pattern still, except that I reduced the original stitch count that I cast on. If you look at the pattern, you can see that the stitch count is decreasing in increments of 8. And so I just decreased another 8 stitches. So I only cast on 72 stitches for this size. And then I only knit it to a total of 7 inches before I started doing the decreasing. But it worked up really nicely too. It was so much fun to, again, use up all these little scraps. I did throw in 3 different sections using bulky weight yarn instead of worsted weight, but I had used that same bulky weight in the blanket that I had made along with all the other worsted weight yarns, and I didn't really think that it had made much of a difference with the tension, and so I thought I could go ahead and throw it into this hat, and I think it's worked up really beautifully as well. So this one I tried on my younger sons, who are 7 and 8, and it fit them really well. So this would be a great size for a small child. So I really love how that one worked up too. And then I will show you another finished object that I was able to finish this week that I'm so excited about. But after I finished that, I had, again, just a few little scraps of yarn left over. And I went ahead and made another hat using the same stitch count that I did for this child size hat. So I had, in the project that I'll show you next, I used this pink color and the white color, and then I had a little tiny scrap of this teal color left over as well. So I just put them all together, and I really think this one turned out super cute as well. I love how that stripe just turned out there. So same thing, same needle size, use a US 6 4mm for the 1x1 twisted ribbing, and then US 8 5mm for the remainder. And yeah, did the same exact thing as I did for this one. And it only takes like less than 50 grams total for these little hats, so that's great. Super great use of worsted weight scraps of yarn. So I'm so excited. So I have a total of 8 hats that I'm going to be sending off to Woolly Wishes. And then I had just a few other skeins of yarn in my stash that I wanted to try to use up for this make along. I had 2 almost full skeins of a baby pink color, which I used here on the brim, and almost 1 full skein of this white color. And I was going to use the pink and the white together to make a baby blanket. So I had only 3, not quite 3 skeins of that yarn. I wasn't quite sure, I didn't really think that that was going to make a very large baby blanket. And then I did have 3, not quite 3, because one of them for sure was about half of a skein. So about 2.5 skeins of black sparkle yarn. And I really didn't know if I wanted to include that because it was going to be such a stark contrast. But after receiving a comment in my last video, because I had shown off several of the baby blankets that I'm going to be donating to Woolly Wishes, and I had made a comment about how I had held on to those baby blankets for quite a while just because they were in such bold colors and I wasn't sure how they would be received. I was a little bit apprehensive to gift them because I was afraid that the bold colors were going to be, you know, I just wasn't sure if they would be well received by people because they were so bold. And, you know, some people's aesthetic does not, you know, sometimes people just don't like bold colors. They like pastels or they like softer colors, and I just wasn't sure if it would go along with baby nursery color schemes and things like that. But anyway, one of the comments from my last episode was from a lady and her daughter that was watching my video with me, and they were encouraging me that the blankets were really great and perfect for babies and how small children love bright, bold colors so much more than adults typically. And so anyway, they were just kind of encouraging me to not be to be confident in giving those bold colors, especially in baby gifts. So anyway, I had this pink yarn and white yarn, and then I had black sparkle yarn as well. And I even asked my children, what do you think, kids? Should I include this black yarn in this project or not? And all of my boys said yes, include it, and only my daughter said not to include it. But I did go ahead and include it, not only because the kids, not only for all those reasons, the kids voted for it. I was encouraged by the viewer to do more bold contrasting colors in baby items, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to have enough yarn to make a good size baby blanket without that black yarn being included anyway. So I included it. I really wanted to just make a granny square because I just wanted to be able to use up as much of that yarn as possible. So I thought if I could just work from the center out and just make a square, I can, you know, I don't have to worry about yarn management quite as much. I can just kind of keep an eye on how much yarn I have left over and use up as much as possible. But I didn't want to do just a standard granny square. I wanted to do something a little bit more special that was maybe a little bit more feminine in color, since I had this pink yarn, or feminine in design. Since I had the pink yarn, it was gonna, you know, definitely look pretty girly. And I thought it would just be fun to have a fun textural pattern in this granny square. So I looked online for granny square variations, and I came across a shell pattern in a granny square. And I found a free YouTube tutorial called How to Crochet a Beautiful Shells Blanket in One Color, and it is by Jonna Martinez. And it was a wonderful tutorial, very, very easy to follow, and I am so pleased with how this blanket turned out. So here it is. I absolutely love this pattern. I think it's so beautiful. It was so much fun to work up. Obviously super quick. It only took me 3 days to make this. So I'm just so pleased, and I really am happy with how the black and white contrast just really added to this blanket. It really reminds me of kind of a retro color scheme. When I was in high school, one of my it was a college friend. In college, one of my college friends at her home, she had a bathroom that had tiles on the walls that were all pink and black. And probably there were some white accents too, because it was in a bathroom. But anyway, I just loved that bathroom because it was so unique and very retro in coloring, you know, the color scheme. It was so much fun. Anyway, so that kind of I was reminded of that as I was making this. And yeah, the pattern is just, I just think it's so beautiful. I really, really love this pattern. It's just a 2-row repeat, and it was wonderful. So easy to work up. I used a USH 5mm hook, and I was able to use up so much of that yarn. Like I said, all I had left, I used up, well, I do have just the tiniest little ball of the pink left over, but otherwise all of the pink and the white is completely used up, and the black is absolutely used up because I was playing yarn chicken when I was finishing up both of those black sections. I just made it with only a little tiny tail of yarn left over for both of those black sections. So that was awesome. Anyway, so happy with how this turned out. It's a really nice blankie size, I think. And I love how it just ends with this beautiful scalloped edging. So it just, you don't need to add a border because it just finishes itself off so beautifully. I love it so much. I did, when I was changing yarn colors, I did, as I said, it's a 2-row repeat. I first tried to change colors on that second row of the repeat, and that doesn't look as good. It doesn't finish this. The shell pattern is really more beautiful when you can see, here's this little V stitch right here. This little V stitch right here is from the first round, and then the shell pattern here is the second round. I think it was when I was changing from this pink to the first black that I tried doing the first V-stitch chain using the rest of my pink that I had left over and then using the black, but it looked weird. So I recommend, if you do have to change colors, to do it on that the first row of the repeat. Oh, I think it's so pretty. I'm really happy with it. This is another pattern that I can definitely see using again because it was so much fun and I just love the result so much. I think it's so beautiful. So the yarn, all of the yarn that I've shown you from the hats and this blanket, they're all worsted weight except for the one little, this one little hat that has some bulky in it, but they're all 100% acrylic yarns. Some, various different makers. There's some Caron, there's some Red Heart, there's some Mainstays, Lion brand, several different brands, but it's all 100% acrylic. Most of it's worsted weight, so I'm super happy with that. So that brings my total of items that I am able to donate to Woolly Wishes to 18 items. So I'm so happy to be able to donate those things as well to that Make Along and to that organization. I used to live in Turkey, and so I lived in Istanbul, Turkey for 2 years, and I actually visited Izmir, Turkey, which is where these refugees are living. So that just adds an extra bonus. I love gift knitting anyway, and then to be able to donate to refugees, period, is such a blessing to me. I just think that is so wonderful to be able to gift handmade items to them. And then the fact that they're living in Turkey, which has a special place in my heart as well, is an extra added bonus. So I'm so pleased to be able to be participating in this Make Along. Okay, on to my works in progress. My first work in progress that I want to share with you all is my Hexi Scrappy Blanket. And I have made a bit of progress on this since I showed it to you last time. So last time I showed this off on an episode, I had just finished another round around my large hexagon. So from the beginning of this project until the last time that I showed you, I had just always been working in a hexagon shape. So I was just continuing to add on and continuing in a hexagon shape. But I got to the point where my blanket was wide enough to where I wanted it to be, and now I am working on squaring off the edges so that in the end it will be kind of a rectangular shape. Well, this is my own pattern. I have a YouTube tutorial that I will link to in the description box below that shows you how to make this pattern if you would like to make a scrappy blanket of your own. I am using all fingering weight scraps, and I use a C 2.75 millimeter crochet hook. So last time I showed you, let's see if I can figure out where I was. From this hexagon to this hexagon is where I was last time. That's where my hexagon had finished. And I have added all of these hexagons to make more of a, more of a straight edge, a corner. So I have added just this row like this, and then I've just decreased all the way along to make kind of a corner. So I'll stand up so you can see it better. Okay, so here you can kind of maybe see that this is the straight side edge here along my side, and then the top edge will just have kind of a scalloped edge as these hexagons form like this. I haven't decided yet if I will add a border to this blanket when it's all done or not. I will see. But here you can kind of see this is how the hexagon is right now. So this will be the next corner probably that I will add on to square this off. So does that give you kind of an idea of how big it is right now? Kind of. It's hard to show it. Oh, while I'm up, I want to show off my Thanksgiving cactus because it's so gorgeous. It's blooming right now and it's amazing, isn't it? I love this. I don't really consider myself to have a green thumb, but I do a lot better with houseplants than I do with outside plants, and I'm so pleased that this is blooming so beautifully this year. I posted this to my stories on Instagram, and I had a few people, hang on, come down here. And I had a few people ask me what was the difference between a Christmas cactus and a Thanksgiving cactus, or they said I thought that was called a Christmas cactus. I'm not 100% sure. I just call it a Thanksgiving cactus because it blooms around American Thanksgiving. So I don't really know the difference. I haven't researched if there is a difference or if it's the same thing. I'm not sure. Anyway, after I square off all of the corners on this blanket, I will probably still end up adding length to both the top and the bottom because I want it to be more of a rectangular shape. But that is my progress so far, which is also why you see so many of these little ends still hanging out, because I'll be crocheting over those as I add more length to the blanket. So anyway, I absolutely love this project. It takes the tiniest little bit of scraps, just less than 1 gram for each little section. So it's so much fun to work on. This is the project that I work on first thing every morning. I add at least, well, I typically add 2 hexagons to this blanket every morning. That's the first thing that I do, and that way I'm able to see some pretty good progress on it because, you know, obviously it's a long-term project and it does take a lot of time, but I just really enjoy working on it a little bit every day. My next work in progress is in this adorable project bag from Trisha of Joy in the Stitches. And in here is a pair of colorwork mittens. Well, it's only one right now because it's still at the beginning stages of this project. This is the Polaris pattern by Rebecca Blair. And I am knitting these mittens for my mother-in-law for a Christmas present. Here is a beautiful little stitch marker progress keeper that I received from Michelle, who always watches. I know her personally, but hi Michelle. Thank you so much for this beautiful snowflake stitch marker. And that is marking where I was last time I recorded an episode. So I had only just begun last time. And I have done a little bit of progress, not a ton. I am using Knit Picks palette yarn, which is a fingering weight 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And the 2 colorways that I'm using are Indigo Heather and Oregon Coast Heather. So this pattern is knit from the cuff up as well, and it is knit on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. All of the needles that I use are Chaogu red lace, and I've never made mittens before with this type of a cuff, but it's actually a doubled over cuff. So this long purple section will actually be tucked inside the mitten. So I did 1 row of purl stitches so that it folds in really easily upon itself, and then that will be, I believe, stitched into the inside somehow once I go along. And anyway, so this is where the bottom of the mitten will actually start. So I haven't done a whole lot yet, but I am excited to be into that color work. My stitches don't look very neat and tidy, but they'll look better once it's blocked. So anyway, I'm not sure about the fit. They seem a little bit big, but I'm not sure. I'm going to continue working on them, and I'll have a better idea once I get into the hand portion, I think, to see how the fit's going to be. So usually with color work, I increase my needle size by 2 needles usually. I didn't with this pattern. I stayed with the US one for the entirety of the mitten so far because I looked back at other patterns that I had made, and this has a pretty high stitch count, and so I didn't want it to turn out too big. Well, I already think it's turning out maybe a little too big, so I'm glad I didn't go up in needle size. But also the stitch count increases right before you start the color work, and it doesn't have a traditional cuff. And so I thought that, well, at least the other cuffs that I've made are either ribbed or I've just never done a cuff like this where it's doubled over, so I figured that that would help snug it in a bit. I don't know. I'm just going with the US ones for the entirety of the mitten, and we'll see how it works out. I don't seem to be making sense in the way I'm explaining it, but hopefully it will work out in the end. We'll see. Anyway, I haven't gotten too far on those, and we'll see how they come along. I'm hopeful that it'll work out. But I'm really enjoying those. I absolutely love color work projects, so I'm super happy to be working on those. And my last work in progress is in this cute little Japanese knot bag that my friend Tina made for me, and this is Tina's Christmas present, and she let me know that she does not want to keep her present a surprise, which is perfectly fine. I'm happy for that because then I don't have to worry about spoiling it for her. So I have gotten yarn. Okay, this yarn is my own hand-dyed yarn. I dyed this in my Plenty colorway. I don't sell my hand-dyed yarn anymore, but I used to, and when I did, Tina came over one afternoon and helped me dye this colorway, and she took a skein of it home with her, but then gave it back to me so that I could knit her some socks, because she really loves hand knit socks, but she doesn't knit socks herself. So I am making the Morning Coffee Socks by Kay Litton of Crazy Sock Lady Designs. And I haven't made a ton of progress on these either, but a little bit. Here is a row counter / progress keeper that I got from Twill and Print. And it is working out so well to have on these socks. This is a 6-row repeat, and I can just keep track of what row I'm on because it's an easily memorizable pattern, but I still need to keep track of which row I'm on. So this little row counter on here, you can see there's a number 5 on there right now, lets me know which row I'm on of that 6-row repeat. So that has worked out so well to have that on here. I'm making the medium size, which is a 64 stitch count. They are knit from the cuff down, 1 by 1 twisted ribbing for 20 rows. And then last time I recorded, I had just started into the patterning. I knew when I had this highly variegated yarn that the pattern wouldn't show up too terribly well, but you can still kind of see a bit of texture in the leg there, and it's got a great ribbed texture to it as well, so that'll make a nice fitting sock with that ribbing in there. I'm using US 1 2.25 millimeter needles for this project as well. So that's as far as I've gotten. This is my favorite way to knit socks, 2 at a time. I use a 32-inch cable and it works out so well for me. It's my favorite. So I really love how the yarn is working up so far. It's kind of got a bit of a striping to it, which I also assumed it would do because of the way that I dyed it. So I really like how it's looking. I think it's fun. And the colors in this are some of my favorites. So very happy about that as well. I'm not going to show off my Arden sweater that I am knitting for my husband because I've made very little progress on it this week. So I need to get back to that. I'm definitely still wanting to focus on it because I really want to get that sweater done for him by Christmas. I just put a few things on hold this week while I wanted to finish up those Woolly Wishes projects. So anyway, those are all of the projects that I have made any progress on this week. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did enjoy this episode, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you would like. I would appreciate that so much. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.